team of underwater archaeologists led by Frank Gaudio rediscovered the city 30 feet below.
Under the calm waters of Egypt's Abukir Bay lies a forgotten city. Once a lively and important civilization, it now sits quietly underwater, and its story buried with it. This lost city, buried for centuries, is full of mysteries and artifacts that could change what we know about human history. How did this thriving city end up beneath the waves, disappearing without a trace? Join us as we uncover the truth about this stunning underwater discovery. The Grand Discovery. A bustling city, full of life and culture, suddenly disappearing without a trace. That's the story of Menouthis, an ancient Egyptian city buried beneath layers of water, sand, and mystery in Abukir Bay. But how was this city found after being lost for over 1,200 years? And who was the man behind its rediscovery? Meet Frank Gaudio, a passionate underwater archaeologist. He wasn't just looking for lost cities. He was on a mission to uncover history itself. In the 1990s, Gaudio, armed with advanced technology and a skilled team, started investigating the waters off Egypt's coast. And if you're wondering why, it's simply because historical texts hinted at cities in this region. Cities that once thrived but had vanished without explanation. Menouthis was one of them. The search was no small task. The sea floor of Abukir Bay is vast and murky, covered in sand and silt that has accumulated over centuries. Frank Gaudio and his team used satellite positioning, side-scan sonar, and a magnetometer to scan the ocean floor. This high-tech equipment allowed them to create detailed maps of underwater landscapes, revealing hidden structures beneath the sediment. After years of searching, they finally found what they were looking for. But how did they know it was Menouthis? What clues made this ancient city unmistakable? The uncommon clues. The clue that made Menouthis unmistakable wasn't just one thing. It was a combination of incredible finds. Let's start with the temples. Menouthis was known in historical texts as a religious center, a place where people came to worship gods like Isis. When Gaudio's team unearthed the ruins of a grand temple, they knew they were onto something. Massive stone blocks, beautifully carved statues, and sacred artifacts were found scattered across the site. One of the most striking discoveries was a statue of Hapi, the Egyptian god of the Nile, symbolizing fertility and abundance. This was a place of deep spiritual significance. But Menouthis wasn't just about temples and gods. It was also a thriving community where people lived, worked, and traded. Everyday items found during the excavations painted a vivid picture of life in this ancient city. There were tools, pottery, jewelry, and coins. Artifacts that told stories of ordinary people. These weren't treasures meant for kings. They were objects used by merchants, farmers, and priests. One fascinating find was a collection of religious offerings, including intricate amulets and ritual vessels. These items suggested that Menouthis wasn't just a city, it was a destination for pilgrims seeking blessings and miracles. Ancient records had described such a place, and now the evidence lay right there, beneath layers of silt. But why was Menouthis lost in the first place? How does a city go from thriving to vanishing completely? Scientists believe the city sank due to a combination of natural disasters. Rising sea levels, earthquakes, and a sudden shift in the land caused parts of the Nile Delta to collapse, pulling Menouthis underwater. Over time, sand and silt buried it deeper, preserving its secrets until Frank Gaudio's team uncovered them. And speaking of the team, This wasn't a one-man operation. Gaudio worked with experts from around the world, including archaeologists, geologists, and historians. Each member played a vital role, whether it was analyzing artifacts, mapping the site, or studying the geological changes that submerged the city. Their collaboration made the rediscovery of Menouthis possible. But here's what really made it obvious. They had found Menouthis, the inscriptions. Among the artifacts were stone slabs and fragments with carvings that matched ancient records. These inscriptions included the city's name and references to the gods worshipped there. It was the final piece of the puzzle, confirming that this wasn't just any lost city, it was Menouthis. What was life like in this ancient city before it was submerged? Let's travel back in time to discover its story. Menouthis. Menouthis was an ancient Egyptian city that thrived along the Nile Delta, specifically in the region now known as Abukir Bay. The city was most active during the Ptolemaic period, around 300 to 30 BCE, though its roots can be traced even earlier. This was a time when Egypt was ruled by the Greek-speaking Ptolemaic dynasty, following the death of Alexander the Great. Menouthis was a religious and bustling port town, logically situated near Alexandria, one of the most important cities of the ancient world. The people who lived in Menouthis were primarily Egyptians, but the influence of Greek and other Mediterranean cultures was evident. The Ptolemaic rulers encouraged cultural integration, blending Egyptian traditions with Greek customs. As a result, Menouthis became a multicultural city with a strong focus on religion, trade, and spirituality. Religion played a central role in Menouthis, and this was clear in the artifacts discovered during its excavation. The city was dedicated to Isis, the Egyptian goddess of magic, healing, and motherhood. She was one of the most worshipped deities in the ancient world, and her cult in Menouthis was particularly important. Temples dedicated to Isis and other gods, such as Osiris and Hapi, were central to the city's religious life. Statues of Isis and other gods were uncovered, some with intricate details showing the reverence people had for the sea deities. Pilgrims from across Egypt would travel to Menouthis to visit the temples, offer prayers, and participate in rituals. Also, religious festivals, likely involving music, feasts, and processions, would have been common. The people of Menouthis were deeply spiritual, with a belief system rooted in both Egyptian traditions and the influence of Greek philosophy. Menouthis wasn't just a religious hub, it was also a center of leadership and governance. Though much of the detailed political structure remains unknown, the city likely had a local leader or governor, possibly appointed by the Ptolemaic rulers. The presence of large administrative buildings and inscriptions found during the excavation suggests that the city had a well-organized system of management. One of the most significant finds in Menouthis was the temple complex dedicated to Isis. It wasn't just the size of the temple that stood out, but the treasures that were discovered within it. Among the artifacts were statues, ceremonial objects, coins, and ritual offerings. Offerings such as delicate amulets and sacred vessels were found. Also, several mummies and sarcophagi were found, adding another layer to the city's religious importance. The discovery of ritual objects like incense burners and offering tables further confirmed Menouthis as a religious city, and the large number of coins found during the excavation indicated that it was an active trading hub. The city's port allowed goods to flow in and out, and Menouthis played a role in Egypt's economy. But Menouthis wasn't the only ancient city submerged beneath the waters of Egypt's coastline. In fact, before the discovery of Menouthis, Frank Gaudio and his team had already unveiled another legendary city. So, What is the name of this other city? And how and when was it discovered? Alexandria, the discovery of another legendary city. Alexandria, the jewel of the Mediterranean, was more than just a city. It was a cultural and intellectual hub that shaped history. But how did this iconic city come to be? And who brought it into existence? The story begins in 332 BCE, when Alexander the Great, the Macedonian king known for his unmatched conquests, arrived in Egypt. Legend has it that Alexander was inspired by a dream to establish a city at the edge of the Nile Delta, facing the Mediterranean Sea. He envisioned a city that would connect Greece and Egypt, blending the two cultures and serving as a center of learning, trade, and power. Alexander personally sketched the city's layout, marking its streets and public spaces with flower. Guided by his vision and advice from Egyptian priests, he placed the city near a small settlement called Rakotis. The location was strategic, offering easy access to the sea and protection from inland invasions. By the time of Alexander's death, in 333 BCE, the city he founded bore his name, Alexandria. Yet Alexandria wasn't just a product of Alexander's dreams. It was the work of brilliant architects and engineers like Dinocrates of Rhodes, who transformed his plans into reality. Under the Ptolemaic dynasty, which followed Alexander's reign, the city grew rapidly, becoming one of the most powerful and magnificent metropolises of the ancient world. For centuries, Alexandria was home to the Great Library of Alexandria and the Lighthouse of Pharos, one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. However, as time passed, parts of this extraordinary city were lost to natural disasters, rising sea levels, and the relentless march of history. Much of its grandeur sank beneath the waters, waiting to be rediscovered. But how did they know it was Alexandria? What evidence convinced Gaudio's team that this submerged site was indeed the legendary city they had been searching for? Let's dive into the discoveries that sealed the connection. How was it known to be Alexandria? The evidence lay in the artifacts and ruins found beneath the waters. One of the first significant discoveries was a series of massive granite blocks and columns, remnants of ancient temples and palaces. These structures matched descriptions from ancient texts, confirming that they belonged to Alexandria's royal quarter. The real breakthrough came with the discovery of inscriptions and carvings. Some artifacts bore the name of Alexander the Great, while others referred to Ptolemaic rulers who governed the city after him. These inscriptions connected the ruins unmistakably to Alexandria's illustrious past. One of the most exciting finds was the submerged remains of the Lighthouse of Pharos. Though largely destroyed by earthquakes, its foundation blocks and some of its stones were located underwater. This discovery confirmed the location of the famous island of Pharos, where the lighthouse once stood, guiding sailors into the bustling city's port. But Alexandria wasn't just about grand monuments. It was a living, breathing city. Everyday objects like pottery, coins, and tools were also uncovered. These items revealed daily life in the ancient city, from the markets to the workshops. The coins, for instance, depicted rulers and symbols that aligned perfectly with the city's timeline, further cementing its identity as Alexandria. One fascinating discovery was a collection of statues and religious artifacts, including depictions of Isis and Osiris, which showcased Alexandria's blend of Egyptian and Greek cultures. This mix was a hallmark of the city, making it a unique cultural crossroads. The excavations didn't just confirm the location of ancient Alexandria. They brought its story back to life. The ruins spoke of a city that wasn't just powerful, but also deeply sophisticated, with thriving arts, religion, and intellectual pursuits. Today, much of what remains of ancient Alexandria lies underwater or beneath modern structures. Imagine going on a treasure hunt for one thing, only to trip over an even bigger treasure. Well, that's exactly what happened when Godio's team, while searching for other submerged cities, accidentally uncovered something incredible. Cleopatra Palace underwater. In 1996, as Frank Godio and his team were exploring the submerged ruins of Heracleion and Canopus, they stumbled upon something unexpected, an astonishing discovery that would further deepen their search into Egypt's ancient past. Hidden beneath the waters of Alexandria's eastern harbor, they unearthed the submerged remains of Cleopatra's palace, a find that felt almost like a side quest to their primary mission, but one that would turn out to be just as remarkable. It all began with a broader exploration of ancient Alexandria. Godio and his team were diving into the mysteries of this bustling metropolis, known for its monumental harbor and vast wealth. The discovery was purely accidental, birthed by a search for Heracleion's submerged ruins. While mapping the ancient city's underwater structures, Godio's team found what they hadn't anticipated: grand marble columns, intricate stone blocks, and the faint outlines of what seemed to be a royal palace. As the team worked to uncover more, they realized the magnitude of the find. This wasn't just any palace. The remains matched the descriptions of Cleopatra's palace, the place where the famous queen had lived and hosted historic events. Cleopatra VII was the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt and was known for her intelligence, political acumen, and famous relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Experts quickly confirmed that these were the remains of a high-ranking royal structure, possibly where Cleopatra herself resided. While no direct evidence such as Cleopatra's personal belongings was found, the grandeur of the submerged ruins left no doubt that this was once a seat of power. Among the artifacts found were beautifully crafted statues, marble columns, stone fragments, and even inscriptions that hinted at the palace's connection to the royal family. What makes this discovery even more fascinating is the way it was stumbled upon. What other legendary city has emerged from the depths? What secrets could it hold beneath layers of silt and sand? Could there really be a city once called the gateway to Egypt's wonders? Well, let's find out. The discovery of Thonis-Heracleion. Before the discovery of Menouthis, and even before Alexandria's underwater remnants were revealed, Frank Godio and his team stumbled upon another lost city that had been shrouded in mystery for centuries: Thonis-Heracleion. This ancient city, known to both the Egyptians as Thonis and the Greeks as Heracleion, was once a flourishing port of immense importance. Its rediscovery marked one of the most significant underwater archaeological finds in history. The journey began in the late 1990s when Godio's team was conducting a survey off the coast of Abukir Bay in northern Egypt. Using advanced technology like magnetometers and sonar imaging, the team identified anomalies beneath the seabed. At first, they weren't sure what lay beneath. Was it a shipwreck, scattered ruins, or something else entirely? What they eventually uncovered exceeded all expectations. In 2000, after years of meticulous work, Godio announced the discovery of Thonis-Heracleion. The city was located about 7 kilometers off the coast, buried under layers of sand and silt. Its ruins were remarkably well preserved, frozen in time by the waters that had engulfed it over 1,000 years ago. And you might be wondering, how did Thonis-Heracleion connect to Alexandria? Well, historically, Thonis-Heracleion predated Alexandria as Egypt's primary gateway to the Mediterranean. In fact, it was the city through which all trade, travelers, and goods passed before Alexandria was founded in 332 BCE. The city's role diminished as Alexandria grew, but its significance in understanding Egypt's maritime history remains unmatched. The discoveries in Thonis-Heracleion provided context for Alexandria's rise to prominence, offering a look at the trading networks and cultural exchanges that shaped the region. Among the ruins, Godio's team uncovered monumental structures, statues, and artifacts, which spoke volumes about the city's grandeur. The discovery wasn't just about the ruins themselves, but what they revealed about the ancient world. The fragments of stone, golden coins, and intricately carved statues painted a picture of a city that once teemed with life, but now rested in silence under the sea. Well, let's step back in time and explore what Thonis-Heracleion might have looked like in its full glory. What secrets did this bustling city hold before it vanished beneath the deep waters? The city of Thonis-Heracleion. Thonis-Heracleion was a cultural and religious hub that served as a gateway between Egypt and the wider Mediterranean world. Located near the Canopic branch of the Nile, this bustling city thrived between the 6th and 4th centuries BCE. Its importance lay in its strategic position, controlling maritime trade and acting as Egypt's customs checkpoint for goods entering the country. Life in Thonis-Heracleion was amazing. It was a city filled with towering temples, bustling marketplaces, and docks where merchants from around the Mediterranean gathered to trade goods like spices, gold, and papyrus. The city was a melting pot of cultures, with Greek and Egyptian influences blending seamlessly. Religion played a central role in the city's existence. Thonis-Heracleion was home to the Grand Temple of Amun-Gereb, a sacred site where pharaohs offered tributes to the gods before ascending to power. This temple was the spiritual heart of the city, drawing pilgrims and worshippers from near and far. It was here that the famous decree of Menouthis, an inscription detailing the city's role as Egypt's trade hub, was found. This artifact provided valuable insight into the city's prominence and its connection to the wider world. The city's ruins told stories of its people. Massive granite statues, some over 16 feet tall, were uncovered, depicting gods like Hapi, the Nile god of abundance. These statues were remarkably well preserved despite spending centuries underwater. Everyday items like bronze coins, ceramic vessels, and anchors offered a glimpse into the daily lives of its inhabitants. One of the most fascinating finds was a collection of gold jewelry and ritual artifacts, suggesting that the city's residents were not only wealthy, but deeply spiritual. Ships, too, intact and well-preserved, were discovered in the harbor, revealing how advanced the city's maritime technology was. Scholars believe a combination of natural disasters like earthquakes, rising sea levels, and subsidence of the Nile Delta caused the city to sink. By the 2nd century BCE, it had been entirely submerged, its memory surviving only in ancient texts. Thonis-Heracleion's rediscovery allowed historians to piece together the story of a city that served as a bridge between cultures. Its artifacts highlighted the interconnectedness of the ancient world, showing how Egyptian and Greek influences merged in religion, trade, and daily life. And if you are wondering if these cities we have mentioned are the only hidden treasures beneath the waters, well, think again, because there are more cities to be uncovered. The discovery of Canopus. Another submerged city is Canopus, which, like its neighboring lost cities of Heracleion and Menouthis, was once a hub of cultural and religious significance along Egypt's ancient coastline. Hidden beneath the waters of Abukir Bay, Canopus was rediscovered in the late 1990s by renowned underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudio and his team. They unearthed the ruins of a city that had been described in ancient texts but had seemingly vanished without a trace. Gaudio's discovery of Canopus was part of a larger mission to map the submerged regions of Abukir Bay. The ruins of Canopus were found alongside Heracleion, lying just a few kilometers offshore. While Heracleion was a bustling port city, Canopus was celebrated as a center for religion, healing, and pleasure. The city's rediscovery was marked by the unearthing of monumental structures, religious artifacts, and even remnants of everyday life that gave archaeologists a vivid picture of what Canopus once was. One of the most thrilling aspects of the discovery was the sheer scale of the site. The city was a vast, sprawling network of temples, marketplaces, and residences. Frank Gaudio's team identified massive statues, intricately carved pillars, and the remains of canals that once connected the city to the Nile. The discovery of Greek inscriptions and coins confirmed Canopus as a melting pot of Egyptian and Hellenistic cultures. The city was famously home to the Temple of Serapis, dedicated to the Greco-Egyptian god of healing and fertility. Pilgrims from across the Mediterranean flocked to Canopus to seek cures for their ailments and to participate in religious festivals. The city was also known for its lively nightlife, earning a reputation as a place of indulgence and revelry. The religious practices of Canopus were deeply rooted in the waters of the Nile. Priests believed the river's sacred waters held healing powers, and rituals often involved purification ceremonies. Statues and altars dedicated to gods like Osiris, Isis, and Serapis were central to the city's spiritual life. Archaeological finds in Canopus include ceramic vessels, bronze figurines, and everyday tools that paint a picture of a bustling urban center. The discovery of luxurious items like gold jewelry and elaborate pottery suggests that Canopus was a wealthy city, thriving on trade and religious tourism. Among the most remarkable finds in Canopus are the colossal statues of gods and rulers, which once adorned the city's temples. These statues, some of which stand over 15 feet tall, were painstakingly lifted from the seabed and now offer a striking visual of the city's grandeur. The inhabitants of Canopus were a diverse mix of Egyptians, Greeks, and other Mediterranean peoples. The city's location near the mouth of the Nile made it a crossroads for trade and culture. Merchants brought goods from as far away as India and Greece. Social life in Canopus revolved around its canals, which served as the city's arteries. Boats carried goods and people through the city, and the waterways were lined with homes, shops, and public spaces. Archaeologists found anchors, shipwreck fragments, and even the remains of small docks, highlighting the city's reliance on its waterways. Like Heracleion and Menouthis, Canopus was eventually swallowed by the sea. A combination of natural disasters, including earthquakes, rising sea levels, and the gradual subsidence of the Nile Delta, caused the city to sink in the 2nd century CE. Over time, layers of silt and sand covered the ruins, preserving them beneath the water. When Frank Gaudio's team uncovered the city, they were struck by how well preserved its remains were. From Menouthis to Canopus, Frank Gaudio and his team have indeed done great work in the history of underwater discovery. And here's the twist: would you believe us if we told you that all these remarkable Alexandria discoveries only point to the eastern harbor? Yes, the focus has primarily been on this part, And if you're scratching your head, wondering what we mean, don't worry. We're about to show you exactly what we're talking about. The Alexandria's Western Harbor. The discovery of Alexandria's Western Harbor came shortly after the groundbreaking underwater findings in the city's eastern harbor, and it was just as exciting. By the time they were exploring the Western Harbor, they had already uncovered the ruins of Heracleion and Canopus. But, as often happens in archaeology, new discoveries come when you least expect them. The Western Harbor wasn't part of the original plan, but it quickly became one of the most intriguing finds. Godio's team had been working near Alexandria's coastline, where the water was relatively shallow, so the harbor was easily accessible for exploration. The Western Harbor wasn't just another part of Alexandria, it was a critical location for ancient trade and religious activities. Here, they found pieces of Alexandria's vibrant past, stunning statues, inscriptions, temples, and coins, many dating back to the Ptolemaic period. The harbor was once a bustling hub, where ships docked to trade goods, and it even had religious significance, as evidenced by the ceremonial temples and statues that lay submerged beneath the waves. It gave historians a better understanding of the economic and cultural life of Alexandria during the time of Cleopatra and the Ptolemies. As archaeologists explored deeper, the connection between the Western Harbor and the greater history of Alexandria grew clearer, revealing even more about this incredible ancient metropolis. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching.